What do you value in a leader? I recently listened to a podcast by Craig Groeschel, and he said that three things are really essential in today's world of low trust in leadership. Those three things were vulnerability, empathy, and consistency. He said that today, when trust is low, people need to know that you are a real person. They need to know that you have struggles and that you make mistakes. They need to know that you're not just faking it till you make it, but that you are working through similar problems. And when you think about this, it makes a lot of sense, right? I'm a believer in Jesus, and you look at Jesus's life, and he asked his disciples to come with him to the garden, right? And he wanted them to pray with him because he was going through a really, really hard time. He wept when he found out that Lazarus was dead, and he was visiting there with his family, and it says that Jesus wept. We see a lot of vulnerability in what many would, and I would consider, the greatest leader of all time in Jesus. He understands the emotions of this world. It says that he was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, and he shared his life in the most vulnerable ways by coming down to this earth and living in the trenches with us and showing us what it's like to live. And so he displayed that in a very, very powerful way. Think about your life. I think about my life and the people who have impacted me, but think about your life. Who really stood out, and in what ways were they vulnerable? In my life, I've had several people who have taken the time to say, I've messed up in this area. Maybe it was a certain temptation that they fell to. Maybe it was a business mistake. Maybe it was a failed relationship. And they took the time to share those things. And I think one of the biggest qualities is that they took the time to reflect and say, what is it that from this experience, yes, it was a bad mistake, a misstep, a sin, but what was it that led me to it? What would I do differently next time? And they use that reflection to allow the experience to really grow them. And they apologized, and they made amends, they made it right. And there may have been some severe consequences to that. Maybe they lost the business, maybe they lost their relationship, maybe they had to find a new job, or whatever it may be, but they learned those lessons, and they are now sharing them so that other people can benefit from them. And so they're leading with vulnerability, and that vulnerability starts to build trust, because people can see, yes, that they are in fact feeling some of the pains of life, but they're learning from them, and they're aware that they're there. They're aware that they are flawed individuals, and so that starts to build trust. The other thing that he talked about, the second thing, was empathy, and that we really need empathy in our lives. And how often do we get that? How often do people truly listen to us? And so this is not an easy thing, because oftentimes in our culture, people value the person who speaks. I'm reading another book on making yourself a more valuable person in the marketplace, and it talks about this idea that we are trained to value the person who's eloquent, to look to the person who has the answers. But often what is needed is a person who asks questions and who truly listens to understand the other person. And a lot of times that looks like when that person is having something going on, you're able to read the temperature in the room and ask some questions and really say, man, that must be hard. I can imagine if I were in your shoes, that would make me feel really sad or angry, or and reflect back to them some of the emotions that you're sharing. And what I'm learning is a lot of times that feels very counterintuitive. Same with vulnerability. You think, I don't want to share my flaws, and I want people to see my success. And similar in conversation with people, it can be hard to empathize because often I don't want to feel the emotions that's coming across to me. I don't want to feel like I'm agreeing with them if they're, maybe there's something that they're saying that isn't factually correct, or that strikes a chord with me. It could be triggering. But in that moment, if I'm able to set my ego aside and truly listen to what they're saying and feel some of the feelings that they have, then I can reflect back and say, man, that moment, it must be hard. And that doesn't mean I have to agree. That just means that I'm acknowledging that what they're up against is difficult for them. And if I were in their shoes, I may feel a similar way. And so I'm really trying to understand, what is it that is really bothering you, and I don't have to fix it. That's one of the things about empathy. You don't have to try to fix it. You just listen to understand. And a lot of times when we do that, people start to find the solution themselves. When we can ask questions and we can empathize with what they're going through. The old adage is that people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you listen well and ask questions that reflect your listening and connect with their emotion, there's some powerful things that can happen. Now, it doesn't always work, but I can say from experience that often it does. And it'll be well worth the setting aside of your own agenda to listen to what the other person has to say. So, first one was vulnerability. Second one is empathy. Third one, Greg mentioned, was consistency. And man, this is a tough one. But he said you need to be boringly consistent. And I could not agree more. There's things in my life that are easier to be consistent than others. I started working out when I was young, and that has become a part of my life. And if I don't do that, I just don't feel good. And that is a beautifully consistent thing in my life, but there's a lot of other things that aren't. I'm pretty creative, and my sleep schedule is all over the place. But I'm following these health guys, and they're like, you gotta get your sleep locked down, man. You're gonna feel so much better. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I'm struggling to do it because it's a hard habit for me. I get these ideas and I pursue them, and then I don't know when to shut off the clock. And so that's something I need to improve in, because then that affects my mornings, that affects my routine for the next day, that affects how I interact with people. And so I need to build that consistency into my life. But he said strong leaders are consistent, and they're boringly consistent, and that builds trust because people know what to expect from a leader. If I'm showing up different every day of the week, that can be hard on my family, that can be hard on my coworkers, that can be hard on people that I just meet randomly because my rest isn't up to par, or my schedule isn't set. And so I'm not going to know what to say yes or no to as well, because I'm not being disciplined in certain areas of my life. So 3 takeaways from the podcast. And if you haven't listened to it, I encourage you to listen to it. I'll put it in the link below. But 3 things that strong leaders are, and that they're vulnerable, they're empathetic, and they are consistent, even boringly consistent. So I encourage you to think. He encouraged us in that podcast, hey, think about which one stands out to you. What do you need to work on? And if you're looking for some resources, I'll put some resources in the link below on all 3 of those things in ways that you can practically begin to implement. All right. Have a great day.